Man,
Hello, Karen.
have I got something to say.
Why?
I've always wondered why sometimes a show, specifically in the streaming age, will occasionally premiere with 2 or 3 episodes rather than either dropping the entire thing or just doing the weekly format. It sucks, it's annoying, and maybe for the first time ever, I feel like it worked beautifully for the show. Before I get into Born Again, let me just say that Daredevil, without a doubt, is probably top 3, maybe top 5 in mine in terms of anything relating to cape shit media. Season 1 was perfect and it worked so well to introduce this character and the start of the relationship between Matt and Wilson. Season 2 had a lot going on and had very high expectations, which admittedly fell short, but only really because of the seasons it's sandwiched between. It's kind of like Batman Arkham Asylum in the game trilogy. It's not considered the best, but it's regarded as the worst because of what came after it being so good. Season 3 was peak TV, peak writing, peak superhero, peak Kingpin versus Daredevil, and I have truly not a single note for the 3rd season, and while 1 and 2 weren't perfect, it's pretty damn close to it. Now, when this show was announced, all we really got was solely the fact that Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio will be reprising their roles as Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk respectively. After that, we were relatively kept in the dark aside from the rumored return of John Bernthal's Punisher. It was a little concerning to not have confirmation that Deborah Ann Wall and Eldon Hansen wouldn't be returning, but truly at first I figured they wanted the biggest names out of the way to generate hype for their brand new show. Then this shitstorm of news started to release. The show would not be connected to the original show, just the returning actors. Then there was a weird time when that shifted and they started to play fast and loose with not connected. Following the decision to make it technically a part of the original show, we get some even worse news. The show faced a massive creative overhaul after circulating rumors began to spread about what exactly would be happening in the show. Now, because the show is out, all I could manage to find were articles about the current show we have, but I was reading things that were honestly scary as a fan of the original show. Karen Page and Foggy Nelson would certainly be returning, only to not be part of the cast in any serious capacity. In another case, I heard both would be killed off immediately, and in other cases, we got flat out confirmation that they wouldn't be in the show regardless. A small pocket of the internet, that being Daredevil fans at least, were losing their collective shit at what exactly was going to happen with the end product. Are Karen and Foggy really not returning? If they did, would they be killed? Is the show going to stand on its own and retread old ground, or follow up one of the greatest seasons of TV with something worthy of continuing this story? The writer's strike began and the actor's strike, and finally production was able to continue, as what we saw, it was honestly really promising. Set photos leaked and Matt had a new suit, Bullseye was returning, barring a shitty suit unfortunately, and Frank fucking Castle of all people was back, but most importantly, the Holy Trinity was confirmed to be coming back as well. Matt, Karen, and Foggy were all seen in multiple set photos that I honestly saw circulate more than anything, and finally, this brings us to the show itself. Can I just say, that was a hell of a way to return to this universe with these characters in this show. While I get maybe why Dex did it, just having the show open up to him, no questions asked, murdering one of the pillars of the original show within maybe the first 15 minutes of the pilot, it would be like Richie Aprile killing Chrissy in Sopranos in season 4 or some crazy shit like that. And maybe that's a bit hyperbolic, but my point still stands. It's an insanely bold decision, and even after sitting with it for a bit, I still don't necessarily know how to feel about it. On the one hand, it sets Matt on a path that is definitely new territory for this character, but on the other, I hope it isn't done for the sake of that new show buzz that was mentioned in some of the interviews. Look, either way, it was a massive decision, and I really hope it doesn't come back to bite him in the ass, and so far it doesn't look like it is. Charlie Cox's performance in this pilot is hands down some of the best acting in the entirety of the MCU, and while that's not some insane comparison considering the competition, his acting cannot go unpraised. While I used the clip as a joke, his genuine anger and agony towards Dex was spot the fuck on given what's happened. I love that he also has to live with that anger even afterwards, as we see it in episode 2 after he nearly kills 2 cops in the apartment of his witness. Not to mention, Wilson Bethel's performance, while barely having any lines, still allows the cruelty and insanity of Dex to stand out and just breathe, even if it's for a second. This little slap that he gives Matt on the arms would have boiled my blood, and seeing how he reacts, I can only imagine what's running through his mind when he tries to kill Dex. As he hits the ground, we then switch to Deborah Ann Wall's Karen as she's consoling Foggy's body. She's shaking both because of Foggy, but also she's terrified of turning around. A body has just hit the floor and she'd been so wrapped up in making sure Foggy makes it she lost track of Matt himself. Is this nightmare that's come back to haunt them truly real? Thankfully it isn't, but she still shows this distress as she knows what it is Matt just tried to do. For all intents and purposes, Matt is fundamentally broken now, even if he lets the justice system run its course. I won't speak too much on Vincent's performance as Wilson just yet because it feels like he slipped his glove right back on. The role works for him as well as RDJ's Iron Man or Jackman's Wolverine. The character is fundamentally his forever without a doubt. However, seeing him struggle with his love for Vanessa, his struggle with who he was before, and seemingly his desire for a better New York, I'm legitimately looking forward to see whether he's genuine or not, even if he's already blackmailing people in episode 2. I will say it doesn't feel like previous blackmail he would have had in earlier seasons because the distrust and the backstabbing and forcing people to get with the program feel right at home with a political backdrop. That's enough praise for the performances because I could honestly go on, but I'm more so concerned with the story. I chose not to make a video on the movie because while entertaining, Brave New World retreaded the shit out of some old ground from the Falcon and Winter Soldier show. It was a movie about a black man as Captain America, and it felt like a 2-hour long session of fence sitting. The show is seemingly putting its foot on the gas in terms of politics, so I honestly do enjoy that. And this mainly comes from the revelation at the end of episode 2. We see one of the dirty cops is attacking Matt, and he has a Punisher tattoo modified to seemingly include a flag. For anyone who doesn't care for politics, skip this part of the video as I don't give a shit to really engage in an argument, as I'm just going to discuss my thoughts on where this may go and what it means. First, let me just say it's quite honestly astonishing to see Disney put any sort of effort into anything even remotely political. Everything Frank stands for lies in direct opposition to what cops are, especially now. At its core, Frank's actions are in a lot of ways very noble. He kills those he believes deserves it, but of course, who is he to decide to snuff out the small bit of goodness in someone? It's this position Matt chooses, but even he can admit that maybe the world needs someone like Frank, someone who's going to be willing to make the hard call. I don't know who needs to hear this, but cops don't do that. Regardless of where you stand, there are simply far too many examples of dickhead pigs going on power trips on, funny enough, the people that don't deserve it. It's ironic that Frank does what he does because the system doesn't work, and in many such cases, cops are a big part of the reason that we have a corrupt system. Yet they choose to use his symbol as justification for their actions, as if they actually need the excuse to continue doing shit they've always done. I saw set photos of cops in riot gear with the symbol on and was surprised but apprehensive at how we may see this story be adapted. Given how it's starting, I feel like the show is going down the right path with it, honestly. Speaking frankly, no pun intended, I am excited to see that ideology clash between Matt and Frank. Season 2's discourse the two had on the rooftop is bar none one of the best written scenes in the entire show, and we may get that again but from a refreshed lens on the side of Matt. For all intents and purposes, he fought every single demon he possibly could in Season 3. He was so close to just killing Wilson and being free from what could be a future of misery, and he chose not to. He chose to not betray his better nature, his code, his morality, his responsibility to himself. Matt knows he wouldn't be able to uncross that line should he cross it, so he stopped himself. This time, however, he didn't think twice, and rightfully so. I believe to some degree he crosses paths with Frank again to understand. He wants to learn why Frank allows himself to kill with no remorse. Maybe he wants permission. He wants to kill Bullseye with no guilt on his mind and goes to the one man he can trust with this inner darkness he's struggling with, and maybe, just maybe, that man will sanction his actions. Regardless, seeing the two on screen once more is going to be absolutely electrifying. The opening of the show does a lot of things right, and for me, some things wrong. One thing I need to point out is this shot right here. Since I've sort of taught myself to be more appreciative and attentive of the cinematography in anything, I find myself caring about and catching things a bit more often than I would have as a kid. This change in aspect ratio to the slow zoom and claustrophobic look at Foggy is one of the best things that MCU has done with the camera. The Netflix show always had some kind of sauce when it came to displaying how Matt's hearing works, and I always knew it was cool to experience, but something about the shot of Born Again scratched a very particular itch in my brain. The pullout from Matt being his hearing detecting something might be wrong, for the camera to slowly zoom in and have the black bars close in on each other being reflective of the claustrophobic feeling of what's to occur is something so small, but it feels like it fits right at home. The only downside I have right at the moment is the very stark contrast between the footage that was originally shot versus the footage that was shot as a result of the creative overhaul. There's an insane amount of whiplash when I see what's very obviously the usual unfortunate MCU approach to filming, and then there's a sudden flash to actual creativity and cinematography. This difference in cinematography and everything, it's mainly noticeable when you watch 1 and 2, then 3 and 4. But seeing as how the first episode ends with Matt being drenched in red lighting versus Fisk having the shining white light on him was glorious. Matt obviously being in red for Daredevil, but maybe a foreshadow of his eventual bloodshed during the rest of the season, and Fisk obviously being in white for Kingpin's iconic suit, but also an external look at the internal struggle he has with his nature and what he actually wants to be. Here's another thing, I fucking love the BB report. Being from New York personally, I enjoy how unequivocally New York the show feels with the stock footage, the B-roll of the city and its people, how differently the New Yorkers express their opinions on the current state of the world they're in, almost a little too parallel with real life New York. But I also love how seemingly unprofessional it is. BB Urich isn't this insanely famous or respected journalist, just someone trying to live up to their uncle's reputation. Again, the aspect ratio changes and alternate filter feel as though we're watching this show through the eyes of someone actually living in New York during this time. Needless to say, this revival has a lot going for it. The bold decision serving as the catalyst to Matt's arc, Fisk's struggle with who he wants to be, the fate of New York going forward, and I'm sure much more we haven't even seen yet. I'm honestly delighted to see these characters return, and while I do have a healthy skepticism for where the show might go, I'm looking forward nonetheless and will be paying attention. So here's the thing, the first half of this video was shot after the end of episode 2. I fell a bit behind and this video was supposed to come out pretty soon after that, but now 3 and 4 are out, so consider this my half season review, and my thoughts on episodes 5 through 9 are going to be coming at the end of this season whenever it finishes. Getting that little side note out of the way, episode 3 was an absolute heartbreak. I'm honestly glad they decided to allow Matt to have his courtroom scenes, because honestly they were some of the best scenes in the original show. Slowing down and taking the time to see the arguments of both sides, specifically this argument, was a treat to behold. The original show had a similar argument in regards to vigilantes, but it was a lot less great considering Frank's methods. White Tiger is no different than Daredevil, stopping muggings and robberies and trying to work with the cops in some ways. It's also why Matt, when trying to appeal to Hector as a vigilante himself, was projection done beautifully. Slight side note, I am myself in Puerto Rican, so getting to hear Hector talk in the way that he does about Luquillo Beach was fucking amazing. I loved it. Either way, his eventual innocent verdict surprised me because I truly believed they'd find him guilty and the show would kill him in jail. Most shows would have done that. However, going down the path they chose in order to lead into episode 4 was a great choice considering who killed Hector and how they got around to him in episode 4. Not to mention, very random I admit, but Fisk being in marriage counseling is just a hilarious image, and I love the way it circles back to this very thing in episode 4, so that being said, I don't want to waste too much time on episode 3 because not a lot happened besides the Hector thing, and let's just get to the most recent episode at the time of this recording, episode 4. I'm going to just come right out the gate. Matt does an obscene amount of projecting in this episode and so far during the show, and it doesn't end here. I find it so interesting that the show chooses to use this projection as a way to peek inside of what Matt's struggles are and what his thinking is at the time of his projection, I guess. But the show so cleverly weaves these scenarios that force him to project his thoughts onto another character and as sort of a way to comfort them. He specifically does it with Hector's niece, telling her to believe she'll get justice, to believe they'll catch the killer, and to believe in a system that we all know is fundamentally broken. We see him do this again with another character in the same episode, my GOAT, my savior, Frank fucking Castle. Seeing Frank return was cathartic, and it's enjoyable that the show treats his appearance like just that and not this grand return. Sort of like a I'm here, deal with this situation, kind of like how we saw in Iron Man 2 when Don Cheadle became the brand new Rhodes. Matt meets him under the pretense of learning that Hector was killed by a bullet with the Punisher logo on it, and Frank calls him on his bullshit immediately, basically. I wish on every level that I could just play this clip in this video, but unfortunately I can't. But the point is, I honestly do believe Matt goes there with this desire to ask Frank for permission. I really do. He feels he failed Foggy on every level, especially with not killing Bullseye. He has this deep-seated need to do better as Matt, but even deeper, he can't help but feel as if maybe the system he believes in so much is failing everyone around him. Maybe the city needs Daredevil and that extra step to cut out the middleman and really address the problem at its more pure level. In a way, I understood Frank as someone who knows what Matt is feeling. He knew that emotion and knows Matt needs to just let himself loose, egging him on and wanting him to bring back the devil of Hell's Kitchen. However, that's the beauty of the character that is Matt Murdock. On some level, if not every level, Matt wants to brutalize Dex for what he's done. He wants him to burn and suffer, and at the end of it all, be the one to kill him. And on some level, if not every level, he's justified. The characters nor the audience will blame Matt. Who could blame him after this psycho took away someone who Matt could work a lifetime trying to measure up to and never match his decency? Even after being justified, even after being granted permission, Matt still knows
I got life!
And here, I think Matt starts to realize how imperative and how important this balance is to find between Matt Murdock and Daredevil. The system, while broken, can sometimes work. However, its inherent flaws require that someone else step in and be that equalizer, that protector, that vigilante, that someone else step in and be that hero. I believe that Matt understands what he has to do now, and I cannot wait to finish off this show. Episodes 5 through 9 will be my next Daredevil video when the show releases, so hopefully you guys stick around long enough for that. Before I end things off, can I just say this show did a great job tripping me up and making me think Fisk would be turning over a new leaf. The blackmail was a heads up that that's not going to happen, but I took it as more of a politician being a politician, like I said earlier. However, seeing him say that he didn't hurt Adam and that they simply spoke, it felt so layered because we know this man deeply. We know who he is and how he operates, but we also know how genuine he can be in his promises and his intent. Maybe he did intend on becoming better, but his better nature showed itself in the same way Matt wanted to move on with his life without Daredevil, but Frank helped him realize he might need Daredevil as much as New York needs him. So how do you feel about Born Again so far? I need your thoughts on Matt's arc, Fisk, Bullseye, Frank fucking Castle returning, even Foggy dying. I want to hear absolutely everything. I hope you guys enjoyed this little rushed video, and if you did, make sure you're subbed as it helps a lot more than you think. Take care of yourself, take care of one another, and of course, as always, peace.